The Russian T-64 tank was the first main battle tank in the USSR for which a shell loading mechanism was invented. This made it possible to reduce the size of the vehicle by eliminating the fourth crew member, the loader. Since then, for more than half a century, Russians still make small tanks without loaders. But what did the Western armies do in response? To give an answer to the Russians, they went the way of creating giant tanks. What's the point here? What did the Eastern Bloc count on, creating small tanks? And what tactics did the Western Bloc choose, emphasizing the production of large tanks? So, in 1962, a major revision of strategic military plans began. It became clear the number of nuclear weapons on both sides is so large that in case of a real war, there would be just no winners. This meant that the emphasis had to be on less destructive weapons that would win the war without wiping out the whole planet. This said, military planning had to take all means except strategic nuclear weapons into account. Thus, the Soviet Union began to build a new doctrine based on three key points: preemptive strike, lightning-fast attack, and rapid advance deep into NATO positions. To achieve this, the Soviets prioritized developing airborne troops. They gave them more effective vehicles, while making them mobile and suitable for rapid deployment deep inside the combat zone. In 1976, for the first time in world history, they landed a heavy combat vehicle BMD-1 from an airplane, right with a crew inside. And of course, considering the new doctrine, they began to develop the infantry. Thus, in 1963, the T-64 main battle tank appeared, in which for the first time the crew consisted of 3 people instead of 4. This reduced the size and weight of the tank, making it faster and more maneuverable. As I said, the fourth crew member, the loader, was replaced by a loading mechanism. Then the T-72 and T-90 tanks appeared, and between them a special high-speed tank, the T-80, was developed, which was powered by a gas turbine engine and called the breakthrough tank. It consumed a huge amount of fuel, but even in the coldest weather it could be quickly started and sent towards the western borders. But let's get back to the autoloader. Do not think that the Soviets invented it and installed it on their tanks only to save weight and increase speed. There is another reason, which few people know about. The fact is that the Soviets planned to use their troops in radiation-contaminated terrain. See, in addition to strategic nuclear weapons, they are tactical nukes. Their tactics were as follows. To quickly break through the Western defenses, tactical nuclear missiles were planned to be used. One strike would cover an area of about 4 square kilometers. Then, a Soviet tank battalion should enter the resulting defense gap and collapse the front line. But since this entire area will be contaminated with radiation, the Soviets need the tank crews to hold out as long as possible. And as we know, radiation is most damaging to those soldiers who bear the most physical strain. In a tank, that's the loader. That's why he was replaced by a loading mechanism. In addition, the military doctrine of the USSR assumed that the Soviet troops should move as quickly as possible to the positions of enemy armies and intermingle with them. Then NATO commanders would be faced with the choice of being defeated or sacrificing their own troops by using nuclear weapons. But in this case, they would still be defeated by the Soviet infantry of the second or third wave. It's hard to call such tactics humane even to your own soldiers, but it's what the Soviets were counting on. The Western military doctrine is different. Let's take a look at all modern Western tanks. Leclerc, Challenger, Abrams, Leopard, all of them are characterized by their huge size compared to Soviet tanks. It would seem that this is a bad thing, right? Tanks will be slow, besides they are easier to hit. In fact, this is absolutely not the case. They have a number of great advantages over Soviet and Russian tank designs. First, there's a very little space in the Russian T-72 or T-90. The crew experiences more discomfort and gets tired more quickly. Moreover, the small interior space means that if a heat charge hits the tank, the probability of burning the vehicle and everyone inside it is much higher. It is very difficult to install modern electronics and optics in Soviet tanks. There is simply not enough space for them. Fire control system, night vision, thermal imager, battlefield communications – all these things make Soviet tankers sad. Their loading mechanism has huge flaws as well. First of all, it has a carousel-shaped design. This does not allow using longer, more powerful ammunition. The mechanism simply will not accommodate them. The carousel shape of the autoloader makes Russian tanks unsafe. It is technically impossible to separate the shells inside it from the crew by any protective layer. Even if by some miracle the autoloader in the T-72 could be separated from the crew, it would make no sense. This mechanism holds only 22 shells, and another 22 shells are located in the tank without any protection. This causes the Russian tank to simply explode when being hit, and its turret to fly off, like a beer bottle cap. Realizing that the Soviets were making large numbers of cheap and fast breakthrough tanks, the NATO countries responded by creating big Hunter tanks. These have stronger armor, offer superior protection and crew survivability, and have much better range and visibility than Soviet tanks. Western tanks are designed so that one Abrams or Leopard can destroy 5 to 7 T-72 or T-90 tanks, and from a long distance to prevent them from getting too close. The differences between the two weapon schools still remain, but even now we can see their mixing. For example, the French tank AMX 56 Leclerc already has an autoloader, not of the carousel, but of the rectangular type. The new American Abrams 6 tank and the German Kf-51 Panther will also be equipped with autoloaders, and the shells in them will be separated from the crew. In terms of weight and dimensions, they are likely to be smaller than today's Abrams A1 and Leopard 2. In turn, the newest Russian T-14 Armata was designed bigger in order to modernize the systems and eliminate lots of flaws their previous tank had. Isn't interesting how different ways did the Eastern and the Western Bloc tanks go, and how they are starting to obtain similar qualities now? I guess it is. That's all for today. Thank you all for watching. My name is Casper, and I'll see you guys real soon.